Good morning and welcome back to Family Meeting Studios here in Palm Coast, Florida. It is a beautiful sunny day outside, 70-ish degrees.
But you know what? I told Thomas, I was like, it's cold today, so I want to wear a sweater. And he's like, it's not cold. And I realized
I said it's not cold outside.
Outside. But it's always cold in our house in the morning, so I'm always in sweaters on the podcast. I skipped the gym today.
Well,
so
because
outside.
we turn the temperature down to 65 degrees at night to sleep.
Which is awesome because then we can snuggle.
So it's nice and cozy, but when you get up, it is a little chilly in the morning for us Floridians. So hope that you have had a great wake, and it's the election was yesterday.
Yes.
So we're not going to talk politics. Don't worry. Don't tune us off. But we had an interesting experience as parents because for the first time, our oldest daughter voted in a national election. So
never had that experience.
Kind of had to talk her through how to do it. And you know, it's interesting to me because there's very few situations where I walk into and I feel nervous. But for some reason, going to vote makes me nervous. And I think it goes back to when I was a kid growing up in Iowa. We would take the Iowa test of basic skills, and it was the same format as voting where you fill in the little dot with your pencil. And it just reminds me of that, and I feel the pressure of that from when I was a kid to perform well on that test. And
test anxiety, babe.
I think that's exactly what it is, because voting itself is not a big deal. The ballot is pretty self-explanatory. You go in there, even if you're not sure what the amendments are or whatever, they have a little explanation about what it's about. Mm-hmm. Like, you just circle it in and you're done. But for some reason, walking in, I feel that anxiety from when I was a kid.
Yeah. Do you feel like you passed your test yesterday?
I don't know.
I'm going to give you a 100.
Yeah.
You get an A+ on that test, okay? So you can let go.
Yeah, but it was interesting walking her into it. And you could tell Catherine was nervous.
She was very nervous.
Being her first time, so.
But she did it. She did a great job, and it was like a milestone in her life.
And we got the sticker picture with us wearing our I voted stickers. Nice, so
yeah, so we'll remember forever.
Hopefully you went out and got your vote in. I'd love to hear the stories about when your kids first voted for the first time and how that went for you. It's just another one of those milestones where it's like, man, my kids are growing up. Like, how did we get this old?
Yeah.
Where our kids are voting.
Yeah.
So
old.
Okay.
On that note, let's.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about active truth telling versus passive truth telling.
Okay.
So we'll explain all of that in the podcast.
Should be an interesting episode. Where did we get this idea from?
From the book Worthy of Her Trust. Oh, I forgot to look up the author. I don't know if my phone's off. So,
okay.
Because
that's up to me.
I have been forbidden to have my phone on during podcasting because my phone blows up all the time and I have a bunch of prayer alarms that go off. So I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
Stephen Arterburn.
Oh, geez. Keep that up because I won't remember that when we talk about it in the actual episode.
It lists two authors for those that are interested. It is a good book.
It's a very good book.
Worthy of Her Trust, and it's talking about how to win her back after being sexually unfaithful, right? Mm-hmm. So, but Stephen Arterburn is one of the authors, and Jason Martinkus is the other. So
I think Jason is the one who helped, but I think it's Steven's story.
He's listed first, so.
Yeah. So, okay.
All right, we ready to dive in?
Do this, y'all.
All right. Gather around, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas, and this is my beautiful wife, my little boo thing, Lysandra.
Hello, and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 215 of the Family Meeting podcast. We're glad you're with us today. On today's episode, we are going to talk about passive truth telling. So maybe you're not familiar with that term. I know I wasn't until we read a certain book, which we're going to talk about on this episode. But passive truth telling is ultimately telling only the truth if you're asked, omitting some of the truth. Basically, if they don't ask, you don't tell. And this is a really bad policy in marriage and can cause some really unhealthy patterns. So we are going to talk about active truth-telling versus passive truth-telling on today's episode.
Before we jump into that, we've got a couple of things, pieces of business we need to take care of.
Let's do it.
Because on our social media, we have had a contest running for the month of October for somebody to win the very first of our Family First t-shirts. They're going to be coming out. They will be available in our shop for people to purchase. But one lucky winner is going to win their shirt right now on the episode. Ooh. I have put all the names into the wheel of names for all you on YouTube can see. Yep. They've been put into the wheel of names. I'm going to tap to spin this, and we're going to find out right now who's going to win the very first Family First t-shirt.
Very cool.
And
they even have picked their color, right?
They picked out their color out of the assortment, and we'll double check to make sure we get the size and the color right before we make that order and send it to you.
And these are those soft t-shirts that are like my favorite t-shirts to wear.
Yeah.
And they say Family First.
Yes.
And
they'll say Family Meeting on the back. Yeah.
Variety of colors. So you can get your favorite color.
A lot of variety of colors. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap to spin the name right now. Here we go. It's spinning.
Do we need like a drum roll?
Yeah, you want to do a drum roll, and our winner is Jessica Caudill.
Yay!
Jessica
Congratulations,
Caudill.
Jessica.
Just to make sure that you can see it on YouTube.
Ooh, I'm so happy.
Jessica will be reaching out to you. I know I have your info here listed. I don't remember exactly what color you chose, but I'll look that up and make sure we have that for you. So congratulations, Jessica. Thanks for being a part of our family meeting community. We're glad to have you as a part of what we're doing here, and we'll get that out to you as soon as we can. For the rest of you, you will have to go to familymeeting.org/shop, and you can purchase your shirt, Family First t-shirt, right there. So awesome participation for that contest.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll
everybody.
be doing some other things, have some fun giveaways as well, especially in our Facebook group. We're doing some things in there. We've got another thing going on right now, though.
Ooh, do tell.
We've got our next book coming out, 31 Days of Wisdom. It's a couple's devotional where you're working your way through Proverbs together, one chapter a day, and we'll kind of highlight one thing about your marriage that you can work on and have some discussion questions to answer there. So it is like this close to being ready. It's actually upstairs waiting for me to preview so I can order our preview copies, but it is coming out soon. You can pre-order it now.
And men, I just want to tell you, any men who listen to this podcast, this is an excellent gift for you to get your wife, because what you would be getting her, as a Christmas present, you're getting her not only something that's going to benefit her spiritually, but it's like literally, I'm getting you this gift of time. Like, I'm going to give this time to you. We're going to go through this together. We're going to do the discussion questions together. And literally, that was one of the best gifts that Thomas ever gave me. He gave me a devotional book one year that we would do together, and it like melted my heart because I was so happy. And then we did the devotional together. Do you remember it?
I do, yeah.
It was awesome. So anyway, this is a good Christmas gift for your spouse, whether you're a man or a woman, but I'm speaking as a wife, so I can say, husbands, if you get this for your wife, she'll be really happy. But then you have to do it with her now.
So pre-orders are already coming in. You can go to familymeeting.org/shop, and you can find it to pre-order there. And as soon as it is ready to ship out, we will make sure that your copy gets out to you. All right.
All right. Are we ready to get into our discussion?
We are ready.
Okay, let's do it. Passive truth-telling. Whew, that's what we're talking about today. And you may have never heard that term. I know I hadn't until very recently. And I wanted to share it with you because it really did open my eyes up to the way that I tell truth to Thomas and how I view truth. And so I hope it'll be a blessing to you. But before we do, I want to bring up this verse out of Psalms 120, verse 2. It says, "Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips, from a deceitful tongue." And the one thing that I kind of want to encourage all of us to do, Thomas, you and me, all of our listeners, our awesome YouTube viewers, what I want us to do is pray that prayer. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and from a deceitful tongue. Ask God to help you to live a life of honesty.
Well, and I've heard this said before, and I wholeheartedly agree with it, that a half-truth is a whole lie. Mm-hmm. So if you are holding back information to give off an appearance that is not the whole truth, that is deceitful. That's exactly what the verse is talking about, having a deceitful tongue. You say, well, I'm not saying anything, right? You're using the silence of your tongue to be deceitful. So it's not just saying a lie, but withholding truth also can be a deceitful tongue.
Yeah, and that's kind of the idea behind passive truth telling. And maybe you are out there today and you're like, okay, guys, what is passive truth telling? Never heard of it. So this is from a book called Worthy of Her Trust. It's an excellent book. We've both read it. It is by Stephen Arterburn. Co-author is Jason B. Martinkus. But it's really the story that Steve, his story. So he was basically a sex addict, or maybe the term is a sex addict who is recovering.
Right, yeah.
But he tells his story about like where it all started and how it affected his marriage. And essentially, he was very unfaithful to his wife, both with pornography and with affairs. And he talks about building trust back. And this is one of the chapters in that book. And it just hit me so hard. I wanted to share it with all of you. We do recommend you, though, finding the book and reading it, Worthy of Her Trust.
Well, and the book is really about, and this is the subtitle here.
Okay.
What you need to do to rebuild sexual integrity and win her back. And so maybe that is an issue for you, but maybe that's not the area of trust you need to build back. This book specifically talks about that, but there are principles in there that It doesn't matter. Maybe financially you've lost trust, or in some other way you've lost trust. This book will go a long way in helping you to think through that process of rebuilding trust. Because once trust is broken, it's so hard to get it back.
Yeah.
And it's so much work and so much effort. In this book, whatever the area that you lost trust, like we said, it's specifically talking about the area of sexual integrity, but it can be a great help to you.
And I would say this as well, whether you are the person who lost trust, if you broke trust, from either perspective, it's a really good read. So like whether or not you are the one who was wronged or you were the one who did the thing that was wrong, it can be a real blessing. So I encourage you to read that. But the concept of passive truth telling is from this book. And it refers to the subtle ways that we as individuals convey honesty or integrity without explicitly stating it, or the lack thereof, right? So this book really emphasizes that building trust involves not just overt declarations of truth, but also underlying behaviors that demonstrate authenticity and dependability over time. So it's really talking about the way we tell truth, whether it's spoken or unspoken.
Well, and the thing is, like, we all are always trying to put on our best face for other people out there, right? We always want to put ourselves in the best light possible.
Yeah.
And there was always that joke about, arguing in the car on your way to church, and as soon as you pull up and open the door, like the smiles go on and everybody looks like this picture perfect family. But when it comes to a healthy marriage where both spouses are living in complete truth, that is God's design. That's what a healthy marriage should be. Not one of putting on appearances, of faking this or faking that. So stop and just think for a second. What are some ways we live in complete honesty with our spouses that we don't ever realize?
Yeah. Sometimes we're already living in complete honesty and we don't even realize it.
So here are some ways that we tell truth passively, and you may not even realize you're doing it. Consistent actions that align with one's word, right? So you're doing what you say you will do.
Okay.
And it's just, hey, I said I would do this, and then I just follow through.
And that's passively telling truth.
Right.
Okay.
You're building up that trust that
or actively.
And knowing, hey, they know when I say something, I'm going to do it. You may not even think about it. It's just, hey, I'll take the garbage out, and the garbage gets taken out. I'll do the dishes, or I'll whatever. I'll be there at 5:00, and you're there at 4:58 or whatever. Transparency and communication. So just being transparent, open, vulnerable, offering the whole truth without being asked.
Okay.
So nobody has to question you. It's not like, so one of the things Lysandra and I do at night is when it's time for us to actually lay down and get ready to go to bed, we will watch a TV show together. And we'll typically take a series, and basically one episode a night. We'll just kind of watch an episode. Well, right now we're going through the TV show FBI. And so one of the things they'll do is they bring these people in, they'll interrogate them, right? Question them. And as a truthful person, a truthful spouse, my wife shouldn't have to interrogate me to get the information out of me,
right?
To get the truth out of me. You know, your husband shouldn't have to interrogate you to figure out, you know, what's going on. And we'll get into some more specifics in just a little bit here. But you just tell the whole truth without being asked. And just the overall reliability of a person's character. Like, you are a person with character. So those are kind of passive ways that we tell the truth, and we build that trust and honesty without really even thinking about it.
But when trust is broken, all of that has to be really thought about and intentionally done. And I love this verse in 1 John 3:18. It says, "Little children, let us not love in word or in talk, but in deed and in truth." And when you do these things that Thomas just mentioned, you know, when you tell the whole truth without being asked, and you are where you say you will be, and you do the thing you said you would do, all of these ways of passively telling the truth, you are showing in deed and in truth your love. You're not just saying I love you, you're showing you love her. You love her or him. And so that's really what truth does.
So let's flip the coin here. This is in the notes that I can see so far. So if I'm jumping ahead, let me know. But we talked about some ways that without even thinking about it, we build that trust and we're telling the truth. What are some things that maybe are a sign that someone's not being completely truthful or honest with us? With their actions.
The first thing that I think of is whenever you come near, they flip their phone over.
Okay.
Hiding your phone.
Yeah.
Because you have things on there that you don't want them to see. You're not necessarily saying you can't see my phone, but you're hiding it from them. So it's passive.
Okay.
If you don't ask to see my phone, I'm not going to show you.
Gotcha.
So that would be one way.
Okay. Anything else you can think of? That was like the number one thing for me is a phone. It's funny how weird some people are with their phones. And I don't personally get it, but
I understand not wanting to show your phone to other people, but your spouse should have complete access to your phone.
Yeah.
If they don't, I believe that there is a problem.
Okay.
I have not come in contact with a relationship where one spouse was uncomfortable showing their phone to their spouse and had nothing to hide.
Yeah.
I've not seen that. Every time that happens, there's something they're hiding. So that's just, to me, that's a huge red flag. Alarm bells should be going off there.
Yeah.
But it could be anything. It could be just not wanting to talk about their day. So like you come home and you're like, "Hey, what'd you do today?" And you're like, just stuff. They don't want to tell where they were, what they were doing. And a lot of times that is because they were doing things that they know you wouldn't approve of or would hurt you. Being very vague. Okay. So like, how was your day? Fine. Not wanting to go into the whole truth. Technically, they're telling the truth. Their day was fine. But passively they're lying.
Okay. I see that.
Okay, so when trust is broken in a marriage, it's even more important to be an active truth teller, not a passive one. You never will build back trust if your spouse feels the responsibility to figure out the right question that they have to ask in order for you to get the truth out of them. Okay, so for instance, say that the issue is with Amazon shopping. This could be a man or a woman.
Okay.
You've made the agreement in your marriage. We aren't going to spend over X amount of dollars on Amazon shopping. And maybe you have separate credit cards or whatever. I know that I would know everything that Thomas buys. He would know everything that I buy. But not everybody has, everything set up that way. So what you do is you go ahead and exceed that spending limit. And then when your spouse comes along, you just simply don't tell them. And then later on, when they find out because you cannot pay off your credit card, you say, well, you never asked me if I spent more.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you are putting all the responsibility on your spouse to ask the right question to get the truth.
But you made sure you were there to get the package before your spouse got home, right? Watching and waiting and hiding the box, make sure the garbage box gets in the garbage and whatever else.
Yep. And then put some garbage on top of it so they don't see the Amazon package.
Whoa, you act like you've done that before. Where'd you pull that out of?
Baby, I know what I'm doing.
Oh, wow.
Actually, Thomas would. It's funny because in our marriage, we're very open with finances. Like we've had problems in the beginning of our marriage, and actually, you can read about that in our upcoming book, 31 Days of Wisdom through Proverbs. We talk about some of the deception that there was in our marriage financially at the beginning. So thankfully, we got over those bumps, and now this is not an issue for us. So
no, and that's the thing. Like when we talk about rebuilding trust, we have worked our way through issues, and we understand and know what it is we're talking about.
Yeah. But if you don't actively tell the truth in your marriage, there's problems that are going to happen. Okay. So before we get into what steps you need to take to actively tell the truth, first of all, we're going to talk about what happens when you don't. All right. So this is what's going to happen to your marriage if you decide I'm not going to be an active truth teller. I'm just going to be passive. If they don't ask, I don't tell. So passive truth telling can lead to misunderstandings and a lack of genuine connection. And I think that may be the worst side effect, symptom of passive truth telling, and that is you lose connection.
Yeah.
There is a very shallow connection between you and your spouse when you are living this kind of a life. And on the reverse, when you are completely truthful, they know everything. So you spent too much on Amazon. You text your spouse and you say, babe, I messed up. I spent $100 over what our agreed amount was, and I'm really, really sorry. I'm asking you to, take me off the Amazon account. Because you're being active truth telling. And that right there, because you were honest like that, because you told when you weren't asked, that builds that connection deeper and deeper.
Well, yeah, what that does is that softens the blow and makes it easier to work through that situation versus somebody who's trying to hide it and then is found out. So there's still things to work through. One of the great things about Amazon is most things you can just return. So if that's your issue, then that's not a big deal. But one of the byproducts of it is misinterpretation, right? Others may misread intentions or feelings that can lead to confusion or conflict. So let's talk about the phone situation, right? Okay. So you had mentioned like turning your phone over or shutting down an app or something when your spouse walks up. So that gives off signs like, okay, they're doing something they don't want me to know about. And if you're not upfront about what's the situation, what's going on, then that can lead to all kinds of thoughts. So if I'm on my phone and Lysandra walks up and I hurry up and I shut it down, Lysandra's got thoughts running through her mind?
Immediately.
So what are your first thoughts? So let's talk about misinterpretation. What are some first thoughts that come to your mind?
So my thoughts come like rapid fire. My thoughts are, he's looking at pornography. He's cheating on me. He's talking to another woman. No, those are it. That's pretty much it. And then maybe that in reverse. Pornography, talking to another woman, cheating on me.
And then it just spirals.
Yeah.
But in reality, all I may be doing is I may be shopping for something for her for Christmas or getting something for her that's a surprise for her birthday. Now, if I'm not open and honest about it, right, she has all these thoughts that can run through her mind. But it's like, hey, this is something, a surprise for you. And being able to show that. But that's just a simple way of like, okay, if I'm not completely open, you gotta realize your behavior is kind of sketch. Yeah. Right?
And your spouse is going to fill in the blanks with whatever they can think of.
And that's true of our interactions with people. If you act kind of shady, people will come to their own conclusions unless you offer a reason. Now, you need to be able to back up what you say, right? So if you're constantly clicking your phone but saying, "Oh, it's a surprise for you," that's not going to end well. But
yeah,
you cause all kinds of problems when you're not just open and honest with the truth. And so your spouse is going to come to their own conclusions about why you're behaving the way that you're behaving.
Right. And when you're not completely honest, eventually it's going to erode trust. Because if trust is built on assumptions rather than clear communication and complete open and honesty, it can quickly deteriorate when issues rise. And it will. I mean, it will just dissolve. You start to not trust them in every aspect, because if someone's lying to you in one area, you immediately start thinking, what else are they lying?
Oh, totally.
If you catch your spouse doing something deceptive and they're caught, you immediately start thinking, what else do I need to start investigating? What else are they lying? When he says he's at work, is he at work? When she says she's, online doing this, is she really online looking at pornography or whatever else? And so pretty soon that trust is gone, and you start coming up with all kinds of assumptions and whatnot.
Well, and the thing that gets me is people who have been dishonest in one area get highly offended if you question some other area. And it's just like, no, you've given me every reason not to trust you.
Yeah, you brought this on yourself.
And so that's one of those things of understanding, if you've broken trust, your spouse is going to doubt other areas of your life, whether you're telling the truth or not. And you can't take that personally. You just have to understand that's part of the trust rebuilding process. And I know this episode's not about rebuilding trust totally in and of itself, but just kind of throw that in there. You have to understand that they can't trust any area of your life. They can't trust anything that you say, and you can't be offended when they call you out on some other area, even if you are telling the truth, because you've proven yourself untrustworthy. That trust has been eroded, as Lysandra talks about. It also leads to frustration.
Oh, man, yeah.
Partners may feel frustrated or dismissed, thinking their needs or concerns are not being addressed. And we've all been there in our relationship at one time or another, where it's like, man, this person, they're so selfish, they're so self-focused, and that brings so much frustration that, hey, they're not considering me, they're not thinking about me, I'm not a concern of theirs at all.
And I think that frustration comes in too when you feel like it's your responsibility to interrogate and become this marital detective, where now I have to detect everything that you're doing wrong, or you're going to keep doing it. And if I don't catch you at it, then you have a free pass to do it. And that would be constant frustration.
Yeah. Well, and nobody gets into marriage so they can play FBI.
Right.
I mean, maybe that is your thing. That's a totally different episode. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't get into that relationship. I did not get into a relationship with Lysandra to play investigator and try to figure out every little thing she's doing all the time. And is she telling me the whole truth? Is she hiding something from me? And so that is a lot of frustration when you feel like I have to do this, and what kind of relationship is this if I've got to investigate every little detail?
And that's a full-time job, and we have real jobs, right? We have other jobs we're trying to do. We're trying to be moms
multiple
or dads,
jobs.
parents, you've got a job, a career. Like, we can't spend all our time investigating and catching our spouse in dishonesty. But the next thing too, that it would also kind of bring into the marriage is stagnation. And this has to do with losing that connection. When you lose that connection, you just stop growing as a couple. And, and I'm very thankful for our marriage relationship. We were just in Hawaii for 2 weeks.
It was amazing, by the way. If you have a chance to go, you've got to go.
And I want to do a quick shout out to Dale and Mike Tucker, who do listen to this podcast. They are amazing friends, and they gifted us a 2-week stay in their condo timeshare, and it was spectacular. I mean, it was really just an amazing trip. So thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Yes, that was incredible. It was literally the trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, we'll never get over it. But part of the reason that trip was so awesome is because Thomas and I are deeply connected. We are friends. We have a close relationship. In my opinion, our relationship hasn't been stagnant almost for any amount of time. We've always been growing closer and getting closer. And so it's awesome now.
Well, and the reason for that is we keep working on it. Yeah. We keep investing. We invest money into it. In fact, even early on when we had no money, we would cut other things out of our life that were probably pretty necessary so that we could work on our marriage. We invest time, whether that is going to marriage conferences and going on dates and getting away, just the two of us, whether it's just for a night or two or whether it's for 2 weeks. But we're constantly putting in the work to make sure that we're growing.
Yep.
And a big part of that is being open, being truthful, being vulnerable, being honest with each other at all times. And so if you're in a place where your relationship is stagnant, a lot of times this is an underlying issue.
That's right. So, when you are a passive truth teller and you're not being completely honest about everything, then you're going to prevent growth and you're going to prevent intimacy, and you're not going to have as good of a marriage. It's going to hurt your marriage. And I love Ephesians 4:25. This was a verse I made our kids memorize as soon as they were able to memorize. Therefore, putting away falsehood, let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. And you are a partner with your spouse. You are one flesh. And what you do affects the other. And we need to be putting away any kind of falsehood, any kind of deception, any kind of dishonesty. And what's the opposite? Speaking complete truth, complete and total honesty. Because direct communication is going to build and maintain trust. Okay, when you are honest about everything, both partners are going to feel heard and understood and safe. You're going to feel safe in the marriage because you know that you're both being completely honest.
Now, here's the situation. What if you or both you and your spouse already have a habit of passive truth-telling? So we've got this habit where I just don't give any more information than what is directly asked of me. What do we do? And it brings this verse to mind out of Proverbs chapter number 12. And we could talk about this in our 31 Days of Wisdom book that's coming out. Pre-order your copy now at familymeeting.org/shop. But Proverbs 12:22 says this: lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. Now notice this next part. But those who act faithfully are his delight. And so you think about the two sides of that coin there. And once again, lying lips is not just saying something deceitful. It's also holding back information that gives a different picture than what reality is or what truth is. Then he says, those who act faithfully. And you're acting truly, truthfully, honestly, a person of character. That is somebody who that the Lord delights. So we're in one direction where we've been passive truth telling. We've not really been telling the whole truth. How can you turn the ship around and be active truth tellers? And it doesn't just happen. Mm-hmm. You have to be intentional about it. You've got to think it through. But it involves actively communicating and being intentional about sharing your thoughts and feelings. So you've got to be intentional about it. You've got to communicate openly. And here's a few key strategies to do that.
Mm-hmm. And these do come right out of this book, Worthy of Her Trust. But one thing is direct communication. So instead of hinting or being vague or, trying to kind of beat around the bush, express your thoughts and your feelings clearly and directly. Okay, so anything that it could be. Now, as far as regaining trust, one of the things that that Stephen, the author, talks about is, thought life. Like, how can your wife or your husband know when you indulge in wrong thoughts? There's no way for them to know that unless you admit it and you talk about it. And so maybe you need to start telling your spouse when, hey, I've been having some wrong thoughts, whether that is, fantasizing or using your imagination sexually for other people besides your spouse, or maybe it's wicked thoughts toward them or whatever it may be. But you need to start being honest about thoughts, feelings, things that you've done, places you've been, continually.
Well, and it's maybe even not about wrong things, whether thinking lustful thoughts about this person or that person or whatever, but just being clear about the thoughts running through your mind. So we've talked before about the issues I have with depression. So direct communication and building honesty is me letting Lysandra know when I'm having a hard time mentally dealing with those thoughts of depression. The same is true of Lysandra. We've talked in the past, and she's been very vocal about sharing some of the thoughts and feelings she has about just her own self. In fact, I think we were in Hawaii. We were in Hawaii on vacation, and Lysandra shared with me that she was having some darker thoughts about herself. And so just even things like that, where it's just sharing what is going on in your mind, goes a long way of building that trust and deepening that connection that you have.
Yeah. And one thing that the author of this book recommends is, rather than your spouse having to say, where did you spend money today? Or where did you go today? Or what websites did you look at? So whatever the lack of trust, whatever the thing that you feel suspicious about, or you have a right to be suspicious about, rather than your spouse having to come and say, what did you do today? At the end of the day, you bring your laptop and you say, I want you to look at the credit card activity today. Here's where I spent this. I spent it on that. When I went to this store and I bought that, it was for this purpose.
So it's 2024. You don't need to bring your laptop to them.
No, you can use your phone. But you know what? Phones are very small font, so some people may not be able to read those.
Yeah. So
especially if it's dusk. So.
Yeah, you don't have to bring this big laptop, drop it down.
Shut your mouth. All right, fine. Bring your phone.
Somebody's been watching a little too much Murder, She Wrote.
Whatever. You can still look at bank statements on your laptop. Maybe that is...
You can.
Whatever.
You can.
Wherever you spend your time digitally, you would bring that to your spouse.
Gotcha.
Okay? Because maybe they're looking at porn on their laptop.
Yeah.
I chose to go with the financial illustration. But now I'm on the defense because I'm being attacked on this podcast.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, the idea is that you would, before they have a chance to ask the question, you show them. That's the direct communication. You just show them.
Yeah. So you want to get your
get your desktop.
It's your desktop and
what show was I watching the other day that I saw like one of the old like orange? Remember how it kind of looked like a big tube, the desktop computer, and you could get orange or blue or red.
Those were Apple computers.
Computers. I was watching some show. Oh, it was Frasier.
One of your grandma shows.
It was the old Frasier. Yeah. And I was like, oh, look at the computer. It's so old. But back then it was like top of the line.
Yeah. Those are all the rage. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. That was a little bit of a rabbit trail. What are we talking about?
So we were talking about your old lady shows and how you need to bring your illustrations to 2024. But so not just direct communication, though, but also consistent actions. So you have to make sure that your actions match your words, going back to Proverbs 12:22. So the first part of the verse talks about lying lips being an abomination. But you notice that second part says, but those who act faithfully. So it's not just something that I'm saying, it's my actions as well. Because we can say a lot of things. And I could go to Matthew chapter number 7, a lot of other places where people are saying, Lord, Lord, didn't I do all these great things? Like, with their words, they said certain things, but their lives really didn't match it up. And he says, I never knew you. I don't even know who you are. So making sure your actions match your words. Practice what you preach. And it's got to be consistent. And so we're talking about rebuilding that trust and changing things. Doing it one or two times, it's not enough. It's consistent action over time. And there's no set period of time to rebuild trust. Like, you just have to be consistent.
The idea is that this is how you live your life.
Exactly. Well, and every day, every interaction is an opportunity to put one brick in a house of trust. And that thing's not going to be built in a day. It's not going to be built in a month. It's going to be over time as you're consistent with your actions. So consistency builds trust and reduces those misunderstandings.
Okay, and then open dialogue, all right? You're going to encourage the open conversations where both parties feel safe to share their perspective and ask questions. So you're going to allow your spouse to feel comfortable asking you whatever questions. And Thomas mentioned that, like, if you've broken trust and then you get all defensive because your spouse asks you a question, it doesn't even make sense. They have the right to ask you any question they want, anytime. And so when you have that open dialogue and you encourage open conversations, then pretty soon everyone's going to feel safe to ask questions and to talk about the truth.
Well, and we do this to each other all the time. And we are at a point in our marriage relationship where we have full trust in one another. So it's not even a question of, I don't trust you. It's just a question. Like, sometimes Lysandra will be texting somebody at night when we're supposed to be watching TV together.
Sorry.
And I'll just ask, like, who are you texting?
Shelly.
Like, who are you texting? It's probably Shelly. Yeah, and Shelly's listening right now. Shelly, stop texting my woman that night. But it's not that I don't trust her. I'm just asking. And sometimes it's not about, hey, I don't trust you. I'm just curious. I want to know, like, why be defensive about that?
Yeah.
That being defensive when you're asked a question gives me a reason not to trust you.
Yeah.
Gives them a reason not to trust you. So
I think the best answer for who are you texting is show the phone.
Yeah.
Don't even answer with your words. Show. If you've got nothing to hide, show them exactly what you're doing on your phone. And sometimes I'll ask Thomas that too. I'll be like, what are you doing on your phone? Because maybe he's across the room or whatever. And I'm just curious, like, what is he up to?
Most of the time, I'm on my game or Facebook.
Yeah. If it's downtime.
But don't show me if I don't have my glasses on. Just tell me. I'll believe you.
Now you wish I had my laptop out.
Yes.
Get that big font.
Exactly. Then we got vulnerability. So if you're going to rebuild that trust, if you're going to change that behavior, you've got to have vulnerability. Being willing to show vulnerability by admitting mistakes or uncertainties, and that fosters deeper trust. Just being open. And as Lysandra talked about earlier, one of the best things you can do is get ahead of it.
Yeah.
So you fail, you make a mistake, you trip back up, or whatever else it is, whether it's shopping, whether it's in looking at something online that you shouldn't, an interaction at work with somebody you shouldn't have, or whatever else. Getting ahead of it and just being honest. Hey, this happened. You're not going to be rebuild that trust by hiding that thing, right? So this is a process of working through these things, of changing behavior. It's not just going to happen overnight. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to fail. You are going to fall back into old habits. And when that happens, you need to be vulnerable about it and just come right out and admit it. And then the sooner you can admit it after you've messed up or failed or fallen back into an old pattern, the better off you're going to be in the long run.
I love this too, because it talks about setting expectations and clearly defining what honesty looks like in your relationship. Because even before I really thought about this idea of passive truth telling, I hadn't really thought about the fact that, like, yeah, your spouse shouldn't have to interrogate you to get the information. Like, they shouldn't have to figure out what the right question is to get the right answer. We should just be completely honest. So maybe your spouse has never thought of it that way. Maybe you've never thought of it that way. Well, you need to have a conversation and talk about the expectations of honesty. What do I want you to be honest about? So maybe you gave a hug to a coworker at work and it just lasted longer than you know it should have. Nothing really happened. It was a casual hug with a work, you need to talk about that. I want to hear if you're doing that. I want to hear if that happens. Okay, that's what honesty looks like to you. Okay, here's what honesty looks like to me. And go back and forth with that. By the way, just side note, probably don't hug anybody at work. Just saying. Like, when they go in for a hug, offer your hand for a handshake. Everybody knows that message. Everybody knows what that means, okay? It doesn't mean you're a jerk to shake a hand instead of a hug. And maybe you are to the point in your marriage where you're uncomfortable with your spouse doing a handshake even. It needs to be no touch. Well, COVID kind of helped with that. You can just say, like, I'm hands-free, don't touch at all. Anyway, that was a little bit of a rabbit trail. But do have that conversation about what honesty looks like in your relationship now and what you really want it to look like, because most likely your idea of honesty in your relationship does not match perfectly with your spouse's, but if you talk about it, you're going to be able to figure out what you're both looking for.
And by prioritizing clear and open communication, you can foster a more honest and trusting relationship. And this means offering truth even when it isn't asked for. And Lysandra's very good about this. I do not care. So shopping for some people is an issue. I don't care at all what Lysandra buys ever.
Why?
First of all, because you're the more frugal one, for one thing. But you do like shopping. Mm-hmm. But I just don't care about it at all. I completely trust you in the area of finances. I'm not worried about it at all. But Lysandra is constantly telling me, like, hey, I bought this on Amazon, or I was at Target and I got this, or whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, or she'll ask me, do you care if I buy such and such? No, I don't care. Okay. Why do you keep asking me this? Why do you keep telling me this information? But here's the thing. She's offering truth when it isn't even asked for. And that does build trust. Like, I'm not worried at all about what she's going to buy or all of that. Because I know she's more worried about finances than me. In our relationship, I look at it and I'm like, okay, if she's shopping, like, financially we're good. Like, I don't have to worry about it.
So I bet a lot of our women who listen can relate to this one. Girls, how many of us, we have an event and we want a new dress, right? We're going to get a dress for the event. You buy 5 Amazon dresses, right? So sometimes I'm like, babe, I bought 5 Amazon dresses. I'm not keeping 5 Amazon dresses. I'm trying on 5. I'll keep 1 and 4 are going back. And so I always feel like I need to tell you, because what if someday he's like, what are all these dresses coming in?
I guarantee that's never going to happen. Unless, like, the internet bill doesn't get paid and I can't get online.
You're never going to notice 5 Amazon dresses?
I'm not going to question. Like, I see it, obviously, because our account is linked. Like, I get notifications. I can see the orders, but I've never one time thought, man, that is a lot of swimsuits. Like, First of all, we live in Florida. We took a trip to Hawaii. Like, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. But I think that other people are doing this too. This whole, like, you buy several and then you return them.
Totally, because you want to try it on and everything. I get that.
Like, what are the chances of the first one you pick actually fitting and looking good?
But this is that thing that I'm talking about, is offering truth even when it isn't asked for.
Yeah.
Like, I could care less if you bought 10 dresses and didn't return any of them. But you want to be open about what's going on, what your intentions are, and all of that.
Yep.
And that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Even if you think they don't care about the information or need to know the information, by offering it, that builds trust, that builds connection.
That's active truth telling.
Exactly.
That's what we're going for. All right, we're going to finish out with this verse. I love this verse. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32.
So, family meeting tonight, we want to have this conversation with your spouse about honesty. And I think starting off the conversation with this question. So I want you to ask your spouse this question and then give them an opportunity, and you're going to answer the same question. And that is this: is there any area of my life where I'm showing you that I'm untrustworthy, where I'm even giving you a reason to doubt my intentions or my behavior? Is there any area of my life where you feel like I'm not telling you the whole truth, where I'm holding something back, where I'm being deceptive, whether that's with my phone or the way I interact with my computer, my shopping, whatever? And having that conversation, and that's going to lead you down a road of, okay, what can we do to fix that issue? What can we do to rebuild that trust? Or maybe it's a question of, you know what? No, I trust you completely. Okay, so what are some ways that we can continue to build that trust? What are the things that are working for us? What have we done that has built this trust that we want to continue to improve upon and work on? And so I think your relationship will grow a lot. You'll have a deeper connection by just having this little conversation about honesty and deception.
Thanks for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
That was nice.
Thank you.
Okay, and we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting. We are going to have a discussion that was suggested to us by one of our listeners, and we're going to talk about discovering your local area with your children. God put you where you are, and where you are is beautiful, and it's unique, and it has hidden treasures. How can you affordably explore it and give your kids local adventures? So we're going to talk about that next week.
I love it. We love going out and exploring with our kids, whether it's local or whether it's across the country. So I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, it was a good suggestion. Thanks for the idea.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting, everybody. Have a great week. This meeting is adjourned.
All right. What about you? Are you an active truth teller or passive? Want to be active?
Be active. And really, if you were paying attention, you should have given that information ahead of time. We shouldn't even have to ask you.
It's true. We shouldn't be asking
volunteer the information right there in the comments. Put it down. So
I'm an active truth teller.
I know you are. All right. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.